sort of the rule of thumb, if you will, is that when one of your kids is asking to do something with you, and I am talking about when they're really young, actually, for the most part, has to do with them being young. When they ask to do something with you, whether they want to go throw the ball or they want to kick it around or whatever it is, the answer is yes. It's unequivocally yes. It's always yes, and that's easy because now you don't have to think about it.
Welcome back to the show. There's no telling where we'll go. So come and share a laugh on the Imp and Skizz podcast.
Well, we get a lot of requests for this, and it's something that I think we both knew we were going to talk a little bit about, but I almost think we wanted to wait a little bit longer, but we decided not to. We're going to talk about parenting.
Yeah, it's a scary one.
Yeah.
It's a scary topic because I don't, for an instant, presume I'm an amazing parent,
No.
and maybe it goes back to the imposter syndrome stuff, but I don't really feel like I'm going to be able to sit here and presume I'm an expert in this department. Nobody gave me a manual.
No, I know. And I feel like if I wrote a book on all the things I wish I did differently, it would just be the longest book ever. I really do feel that way, which is probably kind of odd for people to hear because I get a lot of feedback from you. I mean, you know, the community thinks I'm a great dad, which makes me feel great, but you actually see firsthand that, and you think I'm a great dad. Tango sees firsthand. He thinks I'm a great dad, and it all means a lot to me. But at the end of the day, there's so many times I look back, I'm like, what was I doing? Was I thinking? But I think that's okay. I think I have my own take on what it is to be a proper parent. And I have times where there's advice of mine that I need to take more of. Right. And I have other things where it had to be too late. You know what I mean? I made all those mistakes and it had to be too late, but you said it perfectly. There is no manual. There's no manual, people.
Yeah. And everybody's different too.
Everybody's different. And every day of the week is different. Only, I mean, you have 3 children. I have 2. And it's amazing. Like even with just 2, like they're just so different. They're so different.
Yeah.
I look at my brothers, right? They're raised by the same exact people. Why are we so fantastic? We're so different.
Yeah.
Because people are just different. I think that it has that parenting is really when it comes down to it. Now, you know me, dude. I love cinema, and I always go back to that stuff. But there's a movie. I don't know if you ever saw it. Did you ever see Parenthood?
Who's in it?
So believe it or not, Keanu Reeves is in it. He's very young, and Joaquin Phoenix is in it. He plays like a 14 or 15-year-old. Like it's really so Steve Martin is the biggest.
Okay, that's
name in
what.
it.
Yeah. Okay, I was waiting for you to say Steve Martin. I think I remember that, but it's probably been decades since I've seen it.
Yeah, there's this. When I saw this movie, there's a scene in that movie that resonated with me later. Right, it was a resignation grenade where I was too young to understand it at the time, but I get it now to a colossal level where essentially, so you have Steve Martin's character, who's one of the dads, and then he also has a brother who is just through and through. This brother's a complete loser. And their dad, it does everything, Steve Martin's dad does everything he can for the brother because that's his son, right? But all the dude does is just mess up. He's just such a loser. Mm-hmm. And there's a scene where Steve Martin and his dad, and I'm spacing the actor's name, and I feel terrible for that, but Steve Martin and the dad are talking, and the dad is talking about the worry that you feel for your kids. And here he's talking about the brother who's a grown man who has a kid of his own, and he says it never stops. It just never stops. And what's interesting, I didn't get that as a kid, but I get it now because my kids are growing up. My son is 24 years old. He's not the baby that he was. It never stops. He's going to be 30, 40. He's still going to be my little guy. You know what I mean? And as a kid watching this scene, I didn't get it, but it got to a point where it's like what he's illustrating here is it's not about the good part of being a parent. It's about the part that kind of sucks, is that the worry never goes away. Yeah. That's almost a little kind of a prison sentence in a way. I mean, no, not a really good way to say that, but it was one of those things where I used to use the phrase, and I don't subscribe to this, but I used to say, if I knew I was going to love my kids this much, I'm not sure I would have had them because my heart is out there. You know, this is why you're watching me go through this, as I just moved my daughter back into her dorm on the other side of the nation again. And it's very, very, it's very difficult. Right. But I just find myself in this space where all I want to do is I just want to just love them and just give them everything they can. And I probably spoil them too much or whatever, but I don't have all the answers. I know I'm always trying to have the right answers in regards to what it is to be a proper parent. I want to hear you look at this. You're a good dad, and I want to know what is it that you think you do right, and what is it you think you did a little better?
well, first of all, before we get into that, and we'll get back to that, but I was just wondering, as you were saying, like, oh, it never goes away. I'd love to know if my parents today still feel that way and worry about both. I have a sister, so both their kids, you know, as much as we do when our kids are young and they're at home with us, you know, like I wonder, and your parents too would love to know, you know, if they still worry about their kids, you know, in the same way. That'd be interesting to know. But I definitely, with your situation, your kids moving out now, and kind of starting that next chapter of their life where they're no longer dependent on you as a parent, and they're trying to go spread their wings and figure out who they are and figure out how to live their own lives. I almost feel like that would be more scary, because now they're no longer like under your roof, under your watch, under your care, and there's so many things they could get into or have missteps in that could be really bad. So that's got to be super scary. But as far as parenting for me, like one of the things, I'll start with something I already kind of feel guilt about as a parent, is that we talk about how hardworking I am, right? You've given me accolades in previous podcasts about how hardworking I am and all that. Well, one thing I didn't keep in balance through my life in this working space was giving enough time to my family, to my kids. Like, looking back now, there was like the last decade, I worked my tail off 2 jobs, you know, my full-time job plus content creation. And there was a lot of sacrifices in the family space that I made, to where we could have done more vacationing. I could have given more time to go to my son's practices or whatever. You know, my daughter was in gymnastics. I could have taken her to more practices, could have spent more time just as a family going out and doing hikes and getting out and whatever, where I would say, you know, no, I got to work, right? I was always working and doing that. So now looking back, because that was such a crucial time in their lives, you know, especially my 2 oldest, right, who are now in their late teens and wanting less to do with me. I missed out on a big piece of their time growing up that they actually would have wanted to be around me, and I could have taught them how to be, you know, better humans or whatever, how to be, you know, successful on their next stage. And that's kind of like the ultimate goal of parenting, I think, is to prepare your children to be successful in life or to be happy, either way. So I feel guilt about that. Like, I overworked and under-parented, I feel like, and maybe that's just me. You know, we're always our own worst critics. So maybe that's me looking in. Like, as you said, like, you do feel like I was a good dad, and I'd like to believe that as well. But I, at the same time, can't help but look at that chunk of time that I missed, and time sucks because there's no going back. You know, like that's done. Those ages are done, and now I need to figure out how to make up for it somehow in the future. So feel a little bit of guilt about that, but I did do a lot of things. I did still carve out time. Like, don't get me wrong, I wasn't completely like gone from my kids' lives. Like, I still coached my son's football team. I still went to all my daughter's gymnastics meets and took her to practice here and there and stuff like that. So I was there for them. Yeah, you did all
that, man. And I watched it.
Yeah, I gave them, you know, I tried to do my best to make sure that I could give them those opportunities, because not everybody's that fortunate, right? To be able to participate in things like that. And especially gymnastics is expensive. And so, you know, had I been in a different situation, might not even be able to afford that, you know? And so that's, you know, it's too bad when that can't happen, but there's always ways to be there for your kids, whether it's through events like that or just spending quality time and having those conversations with them that are going to help them become better, you know, eventual adults, you know?
Yeah. It's, when it comes down to it, I think one of the things, and I know you've heard me say this before, but sort of the rule of thumb, if you will, is that when one of your kids is asking to do something with you, and I am talking about when they're really young, actually, for the most part, this has to do with them being young. When they ask to do something with you, whether they want to go throw the ball or they want to kick it around or whatever it is, the answer is yes. It's unequivocally yes. It's always yes, and that's easy because now you don't have to think about it. It means it's yes. Now, if you're in the middle of a meeting and you're speaking, I mean, I know there's differences here, but you will recognize those differences. You'll know when you prioritized finishing the dishes over going to throw a Frisbee. You'll recognize when you prioritize working on that project inside the garage over going to the park to go hit the swings with your kid. You'll be able to recognize that. And here's what's interesting. If you prioritize all the nonsensical stuff over this, and this is a direct statement. I am referring to the dishes as nonsensical when it comes to creating a memory with your child. If you prioritize that over those moments, you will remember that. You will remember that you lost an opportunity, because when they grow up and you look back and you wish you could have those days back, yeah, those moments are going to come out. And I remember thinking, I don't ever want to feel that way. So the answer is always going to be yes.
Yeah.
To the point where, I've had a project in the garage I'm working on, and my daughter came this many years ago. She came out, she's like, hey, can we throw it? And I just dropped, yep, the answer is yes. We just go.
Yeah.
And to the point to where I am failing at that own advice right now, because my son, who you've seen him, he's a fitness trainer, and he's huge into fitness. He's been asking me over and over again to work out with him, and I won't. I need to do it. I need to get over myself. I don't want to do it because I'm like, dude, I'm really gonna slow you down. Like literally, like I'm gonna be very embarrassed because you look the way you do, and I look like this, and I cannot lift what you lift.
But it's not about
that, man.
He just wants to spend some time with his
that's
dad,
right.
which is not always going to be the case.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Especially when they get to certain ages, but. I think we should clarify one thing that you said, though, is like the answer is always yes. It's not like every time your kid wants something, you say yes.
Oh,
it's
no.
It's not that. Like, it's not like, hey, Dad, I want an iPad. And you're like, yes.
No,
You're saying, like, specifically if they're asking for your time,
yes,
not necessarily your money.
Yeah. If they're asking to create a memory with you, you better say yes. So I'm really glad you cleared that up, because it's not like, oh yeah, eat chocolate for dinner. That's not what I'm saying.
Right.
There's a reason. Spoiling is exactly that, right? You're spoiling their ability to survive later. That's what it is when you spoil somebody. But if you're gonna spoil them with memory making.
Yeah.
Right. I was, what was it? I asked my daughter. This was a couple times ago that she was out here, right, from New York. And I asked her, what do you want to do? There's a couple of days left or whatever. And she said, I want to go to As You Wish, which is where you paint ceramics, and then and that thing that's a time sink, right? That's a time sink. But I was like, okay, like it was just me and her at the time, right? We just did this with the family not too long ago, but it was just me and her at the time. Well, I didn't quite take a peek at the actual time and how long it was going to take. And I felt terrible because I had a stream coming up. But it wasn't just a me stream; it was a collab stream, and I have that's something. If it's a me stream, I'll cancel it, right? But when it's a collab, there's people depending on you. I hold that in high regard, right? So we're doing it. We were there for a couple hours, and turns out I'm like, this is taking way longer than I thought it was going to. So I was like, I'm sorry, I need you to hurry up a little bit. Like I felt awful.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, this is the worst thing ever, but I need you to hurry up a little bit. To the point, and she was super cool about it. I was like, we'll come back when you come back out here, and I will make sure that we have enough time.
Yeah, your
right?
schedule's clear.
Yes, it will. I will not make this mistake again. And so we came out, but the premise being that the memory itself is what had tremendous priority. The memory itself is something that, in the moment, you don't sometimes always realize that you're creating those, or that they're asking you. I don't think they realize that they're asking to create those. Mm-hmm. And you just got to give in and lean in, because you're going to blink and they're going to grow up, and it's going to shock you. And
yeah, that's the point. Is like I say, I hold this extreme guilt about how much time I missed with my kids, and the fact that I'll never get that back. And all I can do now is just try to be better in the future, and really take to heart what you're saying. If your kids want to do something with you, they want your time, they want to make memories, it's always yes, unless you have some sort of real obligation that you just absolutely cannot drop. Yeah. And even then, at least be clear with them, like, I do want to do this, and we can do this after, but I have to do this first. But if it's something like doing the dishes, I think that can wait. Yeah. Although you probably should pre-rinse at least, because like the food gets stuck on the plates if you leave them. So like I always at least try to pre-rinse, and then
that takes 1 second. That's fine. You can go ahead and fly. I like that. It's to the point to where, so one of my favorite activities to do was, and we all know my daughter's a ball player. She plays softball, and she's a stud, and it's been just such a fun journey watching her grow. Well, when she was very little and we would throw, we'd be very close up, and she'd get that arm cocked back and throw it and all that. And then it got to, you fast forward the clock, and now it's like, don't blink, because that thing's cooking. And what's funny is I've always wanted you to actually come put on a glove.
She'd break my hand.
I just for you to be like, what just happened?
She'd break my hand. Yeah. I wouldn't be able to create videos for a month.
Oh my gosh. But before she was primarily catching, I remember when like she was able to throw people out at home from center field. I saw her. I thought, dude, the best one ever was she was a right fielder, and this ball was hit that was between right and center. She fished it up and threw out the batter at one. Like, it was, that was when I was like, dude, this is my girl's got a cannon. But when we would throw, well, I played a lot of baseball as a kid, and I legitimately threw my arm out, right? I spit on the table. I threw my arm out when I was 18 because I was an idiot. I used to pitch, and then I didn't pitch for years because I gave everything to drumming, and then I decided to start pitching again, and I'm an idiot, and I damaged my arm for life. I cannot throw the way I used to. It's really sucks, and it hurts a lot. So when her and I throw, and by the way, softball is awesome. Softballs suck. They suck to throw. That's one of the reasons I have so much respect for these girls. Soft balls suck. They're so big and bulky. It hurts my shoulder more. Anyways, I throw with her and I can keep up with her. And then you fast forward the clock and it's getting kind of hard. And now it's legitimately at the point to where when we throw, she'll throw, and we're probably, I don't know, dude, 50, 60 yards apart. She'll throw, it'll be right into my glove. And I'll throw, and I'll do it underhand so I can roll it to her. Like, I'll literally, because I can't do it. I'm like, but it makes me sad because I want to so bad. To sometimes I will get almost too into wanting to make this memory, and I want my daughter to think I'm awesome at throwing a ball. I tell her, I'm like, I used to be good, and I will give it everything I got, and she'll see me grimace. She'll be like, Dad, stop. You know what I mean? Like, she'll just say, you have to stop. You know, and I'm like, I don't, but I want to be able to do this with you. Well,
there's something there too. Like, you want to like be a hero to your kids. Like, you want your kids to look up to you or think about you in these positive lights, you know, as they move on in your memory, you know, starts to fade after you're gone. Like, you want them to remember you a certain way, and seeing you not be able to throw a ball, you know, that's gotta hurt, you know. And I think, one of the things we talked about, we actually touched just a little bit on this last podcast, was how having children changed us. Mm-hmm. And I want to kind of back up a little bit and talk a little bit about that, because we were talking about us doing stupid things. If you didn't get the last podcast, you check it out. It was great because we talked about all the stupid stuff Skizz and I have done in our lives. But what we said was, you know, at some point in time we felt invincible in our early age. And then when we had kids, something inside of us changed to where we were being more cautious. We were taking better care of ourselves, not making these decisions that would potentially lead in our deaths. You know, we wanted to be there for our kids, and that change. That I think that's what you were kind of getting to when you said, like, if somebody had told me how much I was gonna like love, you know, these, I'm not. It would definitely like get me thinking a little bit. And that is such a weird thing that happens that I look back and I'm like, I almost feel like I was a different person. Like, the day before my son was born and the day after, I was two completely different people.
Happens overnight, man.
Yeah. And so I don't know. I just want to get your take on that. Like, you had that happen to you earlier than I did. I was still 20 something, 22 maybe, still fairly young to have kids.
Yeah.
But you had it even younger. And so to have that enter your life at such a young age, I mean, and then have that change you, I mean, I couldn't imagine. No,
you're right. Everything about my life up until that moment was about me. Mm-hmm. It was about me. It was about my studies. It was about what I wanted my future to be, about making whatever money I can to provide for me. Like, it was about me. And then once I had my son, I was like, wow, all just like that. And nobody had to tell me, but nothing's about me, because if I did everything for me in that moment the way I was, it would have been a very empty feeling. So I was like, okay, right now it's about him. Like, everything's about him. I gotta, what can I do to make the best future for him? And what's fun, this is a good story. So I used to have long hair. We've talked about this before, really long hair. I was a drummer in a rock band. Give me a break. And I used to have long hair.
Forgiven.
Yeah. And when I was going to become a dad, I was like, okay, I'm not that there's anything wrong with having long hair, but it was like, I'm going to cut my hair because I just
You're going to get serious.
I'm going to get a little serious. So let's
short hair.
Yeah, let's lock it up a little bit. But I didn't cut it all the way. I cut it to like a little over chin length, right? Because it used to be pretty long. I cut it to a little over chin length, so it still could hang in front of my face or whatever. I don't know why that was important to me, but here we are. And I was changing my son. He was just a baby. and I'm changing my son, and I like to tickle his little belly, and I used to do this thing called failed rocket ship, where I'd put my arm in the air and pretend there was this rocket ship taking off, and I make all the noises. And as soon as I did that, he knew it's because it failed, and here it comes. And it was just like this big old anticipatory, tickle moment or whatever. So I'm changing my son. We're having our good time or whatever. And I go down and I give him like a little on right here, And as I do that, he reaches up. He's completely naked. He grabs my hair with his little hands, and now he's got hold of my hair, and just takes a piss in my face. Just starts pissing right in my face, and I'm just taking this hot stream into my face. And I didn't even think twice. I was like, I'm not gonna move. I'm gonna hurt his little fingers. That's what I was worried about. If I jerk my head up or whatever, I'm worried I'm gonna hurt his little fingers, because he had a pretty good grip.
His hair wrapped around his fingers.
Yeah. He just has it like this. And so I just sat there, just took all the pee in my face, and I was all, wow. Yeah, I really care about him. It's like I just let up. By the way, this is also one of his favorite stories to tell.
I bet. Yeah, I bet. The first time I changed my son, take his diaper off, to change it or whatever, and it was that moment he decided he needed to I pooped maybe for the first time. I don't know, but it must have been, because it shot across the living room. Like the second the diaper came off, poop comes shooting across the living room, and I'm like, this is what being a parent is, I guess.
Yeah,
like,
that's right.
Cleaning up poop. It's on the carpet now.
That's part of it.
I'm lucky I dodged that one, actually.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. You know what? That's what's funny is how comfortable you get with fecal matter is almost disturbing. I was another time I was changing them, and I'd actually just washed and dried the liner on the changing table. So I just placed it down. I went to, change him, and I also knew when he was about to poop or when he was about to, you just know it, right? And so I just diaper off, and I'm cleaning him, and I realized he's about to poop, and my wife was there, who was my girlfriend at the time. I put my hand underneath, and I caught all of his poop, and it was gross. And she's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I just cleaned this." And she's like, "You're holding all of his poop." And I was like, "Yeah, but all right, forget it." And she's like, "That's why we have these changing tables." But you just get so comfortable with it. Yeah. You just, and it ends up changing you to a point to where you don't even really recognize who you used to be.
Yeah.
When you're kind of, I don't know, I'm trying to tread lightly on my word choice here. So bear with me. Mm-hmm. When you're doing it right, it should absolutely change you. And it is about them. And what I mean by that is don't worry about what other parents think of you. Don't worry about what other people think of your parenting. Make your focus the child. Make your focus them. And just that's it. That's it. Make it about them. Make it about giving them more than you got, and setting them up with more opportunities. Also, this is another one, and this is something I got directly from my parents. If I wanted to try something like this, I've talked about before how like money was a stressor, but that was something my parents were unwavering on.
Yeah.
Is that if I wanted to try something like this, I was signed up for whatever that something was.
Mine too. Yeah. I remember when I wanted to become, or I wanted to learn drums, at that time it was like, okay, great. You got to buy a snare drum. And it was like over $100 or something like that. Yeah. And I knew money was tight, but they were willing to do it. Yeah. And it was like, okay, geez, what has that led to? You know what I mean? Yep. Like so many experiences in my life have come from the fact that I started that journey drumming, and my parents were the ones that like okayed that and found the money somehow, even when times were tight, to buy me that snare drum, and then off I go. Yeah. I mean, my life was shaped so much from all the experiences I had in like drum corps, and just learning music in general is great for development. Like there's been studies where like if you do like learn a musical instrument, then you're going to do better in school and things like that. I remember seeing studies about that back in the day. Yeah. Hopefully it's still true, but I'm sure it is. Anyway, so like all that stuff set me on a path. And it was all because my parents said, yes, we'll figure it out. You know what I mean? Like, we'll get you what you want. Again, it's like if I asked for an iPad, or back then it wouldn't have been an iPad, but you know what I mean? If it was something like just because I want, maybe not a yes. Right. But in this case, it was like, this is a hobby. This is something that's going to better him in the future and all the stuff. And they're willing to do it. I mean, same thing with like gymnastics with my daughter. It was like, she expressed interest in it. We're like, yes, great. Hobbies are great, especially ones that are going to keep you like physically fit, and you know, it's good for kids to exercise in general, anyone to exercise, really get blood flowing, and it's good to learn new skills and compete. And then we look and we're like, wow, gymnastics is really expensive.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
and you know this same thing through softball because
yeah.
you did club ball, which is traveling and expenses, and so like these activities definitely can be a big burden on the wallet sometimes, but if you can manage, in the end, it's definitely worth it, because like that journey my daughter took through gymnastics, and like seeing her compete, seeing her get so much more confidence in herself,
Yes.
and learn these things, and be super proud to come home with medals around her neck and take that picture to send to grandma because she wanted the world to know
Yep.
she accomplished something. And it was like, it was such a good thing for her, and I would never take that away, ever. You know, if I was down to my last penny, I would have put it towards payment. You know?
See, and that's and my wife and I are on the same page too. And I mean, our kids are growing older or whatever. But my daughter did swim, she did gymnastics, she did dance, and then she landed on softball and just dug in. And if I have any regrets, it's actually that she didn't do a little bit more. And I mean, from an athletic standpoint, I wish I almost forced her into other sports, just because from an athletic standpoint, it's very beneficial to have a bigger palette when it comes to that. But when it came to softball, she just wanted to focus on that, which is good, you know. And so my son too. My son did dance. My son did soccer. My son did football. And then, believe it or not, so my wife is a cheer coach. When he was still in high school, he actually ended up doing cheer, and he's very strong, so he was able to. I mean, it actually was his girlfriend at the time. He could hold her in one hand while she stood on his hand.
I saw a picture of her. She weighed like 40 pounds.
Yeah, she's a little one. She's a little one. But he really, you know, he got that exposure, and that is something. Another thing that I'm kind of really big on is getting your kids involved. They got to be. They have to, like. This is. It feels weird for me to say this stuff because maybe it's not for everybody, but your kid, they got to be involved. They have to be involved, because if they're not involved in something, they're going to find something else. And that doesn't always go the way you would like it to go. Yeah. So it's one of those things to where, and that's what we said to our kids, like, you're going to have to, we tell them, do what you want, pick what activity you want. You're going to do something. You have to be involved in something, because you end up learning all these skills on what it is to work with others, what it is to sacrifice for others, what it is to be part of a team, to put the team first. Like, you end up learning these skill sets that are inevitable gems as you grow up in life. Right. And so now I'm watching my daughter do things that is just blowing my mind. And this is, just trying to figure out how much detail I want to go in, but she's back at school now, and they just ran their mile, and all the girls were expected to be at a certain benchmark. And my daughter, all she did was work out all summer. And so she just crushed it. She got her PR and ran her mile in 6:27, whatever it was. Jeez. And she was, I think, the second fastest on the team, which is good. And I was proud of her this much. I'm holding my fingers about an inch apart. I was proud of her this much for that. I was very proud. That's a lot. But the next story, I was proud like a yardstick. The next story is, the other girls who had to do it, she was able to recognize when they were off pace and they weren't going to hit the times that they needed to not get in trouble. So she went and ran with them as like a pace car, and was just like, you have to speed it up. You're at an 8:10 right now. Like, she ran with them and finished their miles with them to get them
after she had finished.
Wow. And she worked with another one of her teammates who did the same thing. Like, I'm going to work with her. You go work with her. And I was like, whoa, kid. I'm like, that is leadership at its best. And she didn't even, and she said, oh, well, thanks. Like, it wasn't, I was like, no, you don't. But she learned what it is to make the team first, to the point to where she even said to me, we're going to get ripped apart, because so many people didn't hit their goal. I'm like, but you hit yours. And she's like, doesn't matter. I'm on this team. We're going to get ripped apart. Yeah. I'm like, dude, she's amazing.
Yeah,
like
that understanding.
Yeah.
And that's something that she learned along the way, thanks to all the things she had done.
Yep.
I know that everyone's situations are different, and not everybody can afford to put their kids into like these very expensive programs.
No,
I think
not at all.
I think there is enough things out there, like to do, right? Like that aren't like super expensive or whatever. And as I was thinking about it, I'm like, all right, what are some things like that my kids have kind of like cycled through? Because that's another thing is, I found that sometimes it would feel almost frustrating when they would like try something for a week and then give up on it and then want to do something different, and then do something different. And now looking back at it, I might have been a little frustrated that they were like not sticking with stuff, but at the same time, that was just them finding their way,
Yeah.
like finding their way. Okay, I want to try art, right? So, get them some colored pencils or whatever, and they try it for a week, and they decide, it's not for me.
Yeah.
I want to try an instrument. So we rent an instrument. They try it, and they, maybe play for violin for a year or whatever. Actually, we had a violin that was handed down from my wife's family, and so we were able to have that for them, and so they tried it. Did it for both my son and my daughter. Tried it for like a year or 2 years and moved on. And it was like, that's fine.
That's fine.
That's totally fine. Like, we have to be okay with that, because eventually, like, they have to learn what they like and what they don't like. And something's going to resonate eventually. You just have to have patience. Like my daughter the other day, I took her to Michael's, which is a arts and crafts store, because she wanted to start doing crochet. And so we went and we picked up just a couple things so she could do the crocheting, and she had some TikToks that she watched or whatever to learn how to do it. And so she knew what she needed to get. And she came home that day and she worked on it all day long, and then came out, and she was just super proud to like show us what she had done. Like, look, I did this. Like, my first try, I did this. And we're like, wow, that's really, really good for your first try. And that just gave her, again, kind of like gymnastics, like gives them that confidence boost to like try something new and see some success and be proud of what they've accomplished. And yeah, the more you can afford or enable your kids to do stuff like that, the better it is for them.
Yeah, go get uncomfortable, go try things. That's I did soccer, I did baseball, obviously. I did basketball. I did all these sports. Like I said, when I wanted to try something, the only thing that my mom wouldn't let me try was football. So I have that hole.
Because she didn't want you to get hurt.
She didn't want me to get hurt. And that's whatever. That's fine. But I probably would have sucked at it anyways. But I liked sports. But then I got into the drumming thing, and that was my softball, right? I was just like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And what did I ended up going a great distance with that, and all the different bands I was in and all that stuff, and teaching places. I found my place. But if they just turned in a blind eye to every time I had an interest, that would not have gone well. And I think you bring up a good point. All that stuff I talked about it cost next to nothing to do,
right?
Because it was rec ball. Obviously, when it came to the drumming thing, it was just I maybe have some drumsticks, and then some lessons. They did pay for lessons. They were very, very cheap lessons. And if I think about it, the biggest move my parents made was when they actually bought me a drum set, which was huge for me. Huge.
Yeah, I remember going through the same thing with my parents, because it's not cheap.
It's not cheap.
Even if you get something off
we got a
used
one,
Craigslist and no name brand, it's still not cheap.
I think it was like $350 for this drum set, which, I mean, you can really get up there in price if you're not careful, but it was a used drum set, and it was like $350, and oh my God, that just became my life. That's, you know what I mean? I was like, it was such a huge gift to me that I was like, this thing will not collect dust. And so here we are, and I was able to cut a couple albums on my band and all that stuff, and it just felt amazing. But it gave me the confidence that you're talking about. And while there was that one purchase, it was their time. Is really, it was their time taking me everywhere.
The drum set story, I remember it like it was yesterday, because I was in the same situation where I like really wanted a drum set, and money was tight, and so my parents like found something on Craigslist that was like affordable, and it wasn't going to be top of the line, and I was okay with that. I just wanted a drum set. And I remember my mom being like, okay, I found something that we can afford, but it's a bit of a drive. And so we drove. I was in the car with my mom for like an hour to go look at this. Like, we were just going to look, right, to see if it was something. And it was like after an hour-long drive to get there, I was like, I feel like we have to get it now, because we drove all this way, you know. But luckily, for us, we got there, and it was exactly what I was looking for. It was going to be just fine for me. But like that just memory of being in the car with my mom for an hour to go look at this drum set so that she could give me something I wanted, stuck with me. It's a memory that I'll never forget. And like, those are the things that we're talking about. Like, those memories are the ones that like, nobody can take it away from you. But if you didn't have that time and you didn't spend time to make those memories, then that's it, so really cherish that time, I guess, is what I'm getting at. Because like I said before, it's like, I wonder how many things I missed out on because I overworked myself during a crucial stage. Like, I'm talking when my kids were like 8 to 18, I was like heads down into work and didn't spend a ton of time with them. And I feel like I could have done more, you know?
Yeah, and that's okay to have that level of reflection. You're also aware that all that extra work is going to be able to provide something that is not easy to provide for a lot of people, and that's so it's kind of a give and take, unfortunately. But what you and now I'm talking to you, Impulse. I'm talking to you. Time's not up, dude. You know what I mean? There's
Right.
still plenty. I mean, you have a little one in there, and your kids are still relatively young.
Mm-hmm.
They're growing up, but the time's not up. And also, like I said in the beginning, it never stops. You know what I mean? So like I'm taking this as I even said to my wife, I'm like, I need to get over myself and go work out with him. I need to get over the fact, because you hit it. It's not like he's going to have a miserable time because I'm not as strong as him. That's not what's going to happen. He's going to love the fact that we're doing this. And he asked me to do it, and I keep saying no because I'm too embarrassed. It's not a good reason, but it is the reason.
Yeah.
And
breaking
so
your own rules.
I'm breaking my own rule, and it eats me alive because I hold on to that rule so aggressively. I do, and this is like the one blemish on it.
Yeah.
And it has to do with fitness. Which
That's a good point you made, though. Like that. Oh, I missed those. I missed some time in that 10 years or whatever, and I could make up for it. I make up for it best I can now. There's no getting it back, but you can change, and you can try to spend more time. I wonder how much my parents feel that way too, because I remember my dad. He was out of town a lot. Like, he worked for companies that weren't even in the same city, and we'd see him like on the weekend or every other week, just on the weekend days or whatever. And I think maybe this is the way I see it. I think maybe he came to that same realization too that I've come to recently, where, oh man, I missed a lot. And a couple years ago, when we moved into this house about 5 years ago, he spent a lot of time with me. We renovated the inside of this house when we moved in, like, because it was old school. Like, we needed new cabinets and stuff like that. And he knew how to do this stuff. My dad's really handy. He's really handy. And so he's like, let me come and I'll save you some money on this renovation, because if you hire it out, it's going to be a lot of money. If I come, I can be kind of a foreman for it and do a bunch of work myself. And really what happened was...
That's awesome.
Yeah, really what happened... Well, I mean, yeah, thankful for his skills and his time, of course. But he came, and we ended up spending like every day together for weeks. And I was like, this is it. Like, this is it. This is like making up for some lost time, because he worked so hard just to make ends meet back in the day that he had to also sacrifice that family time. But it's not over, because here he is now spending all this time with me during this project, and we still spend a lot of time together, and teaching me things, and like still, and I'm like at that point getting mid-30s, upper 30s, and my dad's still able to teach me stuff and still be a parent. Yeah. So it doesn't end. Like,
no. It never ends.
20 years from now, he still might be teaching me stuff. He
needs to teach me some stuff. Like, he is a handy dude.
Yeah. He does a lot.
Yeah, he's got. And I remember watching that too. I remember watching him. I actually was here just to help you guys lift a wall at one point. There was a wall that he was putting in, and I think I came over just to help you guys lift it or something. And I remember watching. I think I even said to him, "I'm like, how do you know how to do this? Like, how do you know how to do this? Like, this is so impressive." And he was like, "Bah." Like, he's just one of those guys, you know what I mean? Bah. But I think
I've been doing this since I was 3.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I think it was just about, just being there in any capacity. It doesn't have to be what other people did. It just needs to be something. It just, and it's the whole "it never stops" thing. It doesn't. It is a changing dynamic, but you nailed it when you're like, now my daughter is further away, and she's so far away that like I said to my wife the other day, I was like, if she needs me, it's going to take me like a day and a half to get there, at the best. You know what I mean? You can't just go into an airport and be like, I'm going to New York, and be like, good luck. We can put you on standby. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't work that way. So I don't know. I wish. I'm actually looking for advice on how to deal with that, because I deal with this poorly. You know what I mean?
The one thing that we do have on our side now is technology has come such a long way. So you say, oh, I need to be there. I mean, unless you actually do need to physically be there in person to take care of something, if it's just her looking to her dad for advice on something, or wanting to even just vent at the end of a bad day, you can jump on a FaceTime call or whatever and still see each other and still communicate in a way where you can, because we talked about this too, the importance of in our communication or conversation topic, how facial expressions and stuff are very important, and so the fact that we can now have video calls,
Yeah.
you know, whether it's Zoom or whatever,
Yeah.
right? Like that's huge because you can almost still be there. I mean, it's definitely brought the whole world closer,
right? Yeah,
you know.
And it's so funny. Because that's so important to me, being able to see and all that. We'll be FaceTiming, and she'll just like put her phone down on the table, so I just looking at the ceiling. I'm like, honey, I can't see your face. You know, it's like, she's like, well, I can hear you. I'm like, well, then just do an audio call then. I was like, I got to see your face. And then she props it up so I can see her. I don't know, man. I definitely don't have all the answers. I feel like I have next to none of them. I just know that some of my own like fundamental rules, my silver bullets of this whole thing is when they want your time to create a memory, the answer is always yes.
Huge.
They are first. Your goal should be able to provide them more than what you were provided, and they need exposure, and they got to be involved.
Yeah.
They need exposure. They got to be involved. And at the end of the day, don't care about what other people think of your parenting. Only just you know what you should be doing. You know what I mean?
Nobody's gonna know your kids more than you.
Yeah,
like know what they need.
Yeah.
You know, to be successful, and yeah. So do it the way you want to do it, and but like there are some, like you said, there's some tips in there. But like I constantly think about your just say yes to creating moments with your kids. Like anytime now my kids say, can we go to the park? Can we go to the mall with, you know, can we go do something with you? Mm-hmm. That comes to my mind now, where before you would ever talk to me about that, I probably would have just been like, no, I don't want to do that, you know, and it's selfishness stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I don't feel like going to the park. Where now it's like that comes into my head every time my kids ask, and I'm like, yes, we'll go to the park.
That's awesome.
You know what I mean? So that's changed me, just that little bit of advice. So I'm glad that you were able to share that in this podcast, because hopefully that will resonate with others as well, as much as it did with me. But that's a super good point.
Next time we record a podcast, I want you to ask me if I worked out with my son.
Ooh.
And I will tell you the truth. And
okay.
If I like this, so now this and ask me how it went. So, because like I said,
what if it's time to do the podcast and you can't come over because your legs are too sore?
Dude, you're not wrong. That's the thing. I got to be careful, because he will put me into a space where I'm like, I can't move now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I even working out with I went out and worked out with my daughter, and she whooped my butt, and I'm like, geez, man, how old am I?
Yeah.
So you got to do that for the next one.
I drummed on my stream yesterday. I'm sore from it. So yeah, I know what you're feeling too.
I went to the Battle of Saratoga, and I did a hike at the Battle of Saratoga, and I felt it in my calves. Like, are you kidding me? I walk every day. Every day I walk a couple miles, but this one had a little bit of a hill in it. You know what I mean? Come on, get it sorted.
Well, this was a good topic. It was a fun topic. People have been asking for it, and like we kind of stated from the beginning, like we don't feel like we're, we do feel like we're good parents, but we don't feel like we have all the answers, because we can't. Everybody's situation is different, and so we can't presume to not understand what everybody's going through and stuff with their kids. But this is just some things that we've had that worked for us, and some thoughts on and our reflection on the way that parenting has gone for us. But we wanted to wrap things up by asking our audience for something.
Yeah.
Basically, so this topic actually came from multiple comments saying, hey, can you guys talk about parenting? But I think we want to take it a step further and actually say, hey, why don't you guys give us some of your questions that you would like us to answer and talk about in the podcast? And maybe our next podcast, we'd actually just kind of focus on like a Q&A session. Yeah. You know, not like full topic podcast topics necessarily, but just questions you would like us to give answers to.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's so, my mom, she's so funny. Gosh, I love my mom. And she's like, so do people call in? And then she's asked us several times. I'm like, no, Mom, it's not live. This is
this is Bob.
Yeah,
long-time listener, first-time caller.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's not live. It's not a radio. It's a podcast. It's not a radio show. And she's like asked me a couple times or whatever. But the premise of Q&A is very synonymous with that, right? Q&A is sort of a way of people calling in. It's just going to have it's a little bit more delayed. So please take that into account. Exactly what he was talking about, right? We want to hear your questions,
from
right?
From you.
It doesn't.
I can look at the camera this time. From you.
That's right. Yeah, there you go. I want to point. So that's good. I'm looking forward to seeing those questions.
Yeah, I want to know like what people will even ask. Is it like, what's your favorite color? What's your pineapple on pizza? That's yeah. I think we're gonna get more detailed questions.
Yeah, go ahead and do it. It doesn't mean that we're gonna answer every single one of them, but
that's true too.
But do it. Put it out there in the comments section. Let us have a peek at it. Maybe we can make that a thing that we do every once in a while.
Every once in a while, yeah, I think so. Especially if we got a lot of questions out there, we can kind of grab some for another time. So, all right, please do that in the comment section, or if you're on whatever other platforms like Spotify and stuff. I don't know how you do it. Leave some sort of comment if you can. I don't know how that stuff works.
I know. We'll have to
we still don't know what we're doing. It's a month. We're over a month in. We're still
professionals.
Yeah. So anyway, hopefully this was another enjoyable one. I had fun.
It's always fun.
Yeah.
It's always fun.
And
all right.
We'll be back in next week.
I'll see you next time.